Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 15th of February. I hope everyone had a great Valentine's Day. Well, we bounced off the 23%. The readings haven't, from a daily standpoint, at least from the MBI here, haven't gotten any better. Magenta continues to fall, and now you have what I was talking about, pivot of white above red. Now, at this particular stage, white must eclipse the magenta, otherwise you're likely to see a reversal. So as the two of those meet, it becomes critical. It's much like we look for when we get to meetings between cyan and green, or in particular the most strongest, the DOC spread, where cyan crosses over red, particularly if you get a fading. You can see we're sort of stuck in what I call no spark zone, which is that negative 7.5 to negative 13.5 with the red DOC when it goes flat in that range. Rarely sparks anything that has any power. Any pops we get with that tend to fade off that kind of setup, and we're still looking at a negative shakeout configuration. So all in all, pretty normal from what could have been more severe, obviously, with the Fed having an emergency meeting is always something that stirs a little attention, but there's still plenty of people flowing into it. Everyone wants to buy the dip, and that hasn't changed for years. So talk isn't going to cause that to really change unless there's that fundamental aspect change in people's thinking about, well, is the economy as sound as it was before? Inflation, those are real aspects because they do affect where people put their money. But you're going to have to see the Fed actually do something other than just talk about inflation. And as long as they just keep talking about it, that's not the same as actually raising rates for the first time. So we'll see when that actually takes place. From an NQ standpoint, below the 23%, now that becomes the upside flip point, and of course puts that 0% from this spike well in play at this particular stage. Same readings with the MBI from that standpoint, and short-term buyers even on the DOC steel crossing below cyan, that's negative as well. Now what we'll look for is pivot up there and a pivot up of midterm buyers. That would be the salvation, so to speak. Euro we expect to come back and to fill the positive extreme, so we talked about that when that spike first took place. So shocking with that. Gold bugs will love this, finally getting back up to those previous highs, and it's going to continue because there's just no question with the uncertainties, Ukraine, Russia, all that set up, as well as just that big inflationary print that's a hedge, not going to change. What we've been looking for is to see if cryptos would match that inflationary hedge, and it's been a mixed bag on that. Oil, there it is, back into those highs, and TLT, we expect those lows to get breaking. I still expect the 130 to be broken, particularly as things move forward. And that's just going to depend on the amount of inflows for treasuries as a safe haven. And this is what I was talking about. Bitcoin theoretically should be rising on this now. Obviously, I think there was a pre-move that took place from our mid-30s and broke above that 39, which was ahead of gold. And I think that gold is basically catching up to what that move was, and the fact that it's mitigated. But look, we had positive extremes going back from right here. We filled those. There's another set that goes all the way back to that 39. So it still remains in play, not under this configuration. You're still looking at negative here with white just under magenta at 12.8 versus 13.3. So still a little bit more left to go for a short side view that we're going to either break the lows or even turn to them just yet. And ETH, again, very clean. It was pretty soft for most of it when it caught that little buy, but as soon as the sell signal came in, it retraced it all back nicely. And from a 50K standpoint, we were down at the bottom and started to make a turnaround. So cover took place in that setup, and we're right at in between this 43.99, 43.50, or 44.35. So that's kind of that split. Between them, we've got white leading, but you get this uptick of magenta. So depending on where that bar actually ends, if it closes back below, or at least down near the 25, then I think you would expect more bearish. But if it pivots up like this, then that's a bit more positive. Intraday was a lot of good action early on in the pre-market. Started off beautifully with the trail down, nice buy just before market open. Brought it all the way back up to the even, and then it kind of bounced around for a little while. And it's still decent little ranges, but it was a lot quicker, so you had to have stops in place on that one. But then we finally started getting more normalized white spikes that led to returns back to the 0 point. And then, when you start to see this series of them, you kind of know that you're looking at heading down towards the lows in those particular setups. And then finally we get the turnaround with magenta leading there and above white, along with that blue crossover, as well as steel popping up, orange dipping lower, and that took off. And made it all the way to the 100% and plus some. But did so with a couple of positive extremes. Right in the middle of that peak there, so right as the sell was coming in, you're right at the fill of the positive extreme, so really needed to see that white maintain the lead on that setup, and then once red overtook it as well, did not look like it was going to be a covered situation at that point. In fact, that's what literally once the magenta pivoted lower, boom, the cascade lowered down, started up again, and then it was a slow build back up, and then it got kind of choppy there. Towards the end, it was just a lot of back and forth, which is interesting because it's all happening along this 43.77 algo that we had on the 5K here, and so that's one of those where building along a even line, and when you consider the amount that was below, it's sort of like an average weighted pricing that an algo would typically do. So I would expect that we're going to get a decent sized move here coming into the next day. As always, though, I will continue to update you on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.